Los Angeles, autumn 1969. Twilight drapes over Beverly Hills as a lone Cadillac Eldorado idles on an empty side street. Behind darkened windows of Marcelina, a restaurant's neon sign flickers, but the door remains locked. Inside the silent car, Bridge Over Troubled Water drifts through the speakers, fragile as a prayer. Elvis Presley sits motionless, fingers brushing the polished surface of a silver pocket watch, his mother's gift, tucked into his jacket. There's no anger in his eyes, only a quiet ache, a disillusionment deeper than any headline. He has come here seeking answers, not vengeance. Outside, a distant siren wails, competing with his own restless thoughts. And in that hushed moment, engine off, headlights dimmed, the world holds its breath, sensing that whatever unfolds behind these closed doors will change him forever. Elvis eased the Cadillac Eldorado to a silent stop on the narrow side street, its polished chrome glinting dimly in the autumn dusk. The needle on the fuel gauge quivered near empty. He'd driven here on a whim, guided more by instinct than by any coherent plan. He didn't have his security detail with him. Priscilla and the others thought he'd gone off to unwind, not knowing the truth. But tonight, Elvis felt hollow, as though the superficial lights of the NBC stage and roaring fans did little to fill the emptiness chafing at his lungs. He lifted a heavy hand from the steering wheel and checked the silver pocket watch. As worn and unassuming as an heirloom, its face scratched, the second hand flicking in uneven sweeps. A gift from his mother. It always touched him deeply, a reminder of days in Tupelo when the world felt simpler. Somewhere over the crackle of the AM radio came the opening strains of Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel's voices drifting through the warm leather seats. The irony was almost painful. A song about being there for someone, about carrying burdens. But tonight, he carried his own, and he didn't know who would hold them for him. He stepped out of the Eldorado. The street lamps had not yet chased away the shadows, and the quiet hush of Beverly Hills at night felt surreal. Here, in this neighborhood of gated estates and hidden pools, wealth moved behind closed doors. But wealth didn't spare anyone from fear. He flicked the watch closed and slipped it gently into his pocket. A few blocks north, past tidy hedges and parked Bentleys, lay the less polished neighborhoods he remembered growing up. The houses were modest, stucco walls stained by years of sun and rain, front lawns patchy. Streetlights cast blurry halos on cracked sidewalks. Elvis slowed to a crawl, scanning. He found the low-slung building he was seeking, the Southside Community Center. He cut the engine and sat for a moment, the engine ticking its final heat. In the passenger seat lay his guitar case, a Stratocaster licensed by Fisher, but worn enough that under the stage lights, no one would think it new. He didn't need it now, but its presence grounded him. He opened the door and stepped out, the cool air trembling around him. Inside, fluorescent bulbs buzzed in long fixtures overhead. A small crowd was gathered around a battered folding table where plates of peanut butter sandwiches and cups of lukewarm coffee stood. About a dozen policemen in navy blue uniforms leaned against walls, arms crossed. Under the bright lights and under their suspicious scrutiny sat a young man in rough jeans and a thin t-shirt. His wrists were bound by handcuffs, the beads of sweat on his forehead lit like dewdrops. That was Bobby. Elvis recognized him immediately, the son of Jake Thompson, his childhood friend who'd once driven him down these same streets in a creaky Ford truck. Jake had joined the Marines with Elvis's encouragement, and when he came back broken, Elvis had tried to help him find work in Memphis. Now his son sat accused of petty theft, stealing a radio from the back of a patrol car, and could face a year in county jail. all for a mistake born of desperation. Bobby needed medicine for his little sister. Elvis stepped forward. The room fell silent. Even the flicker of the faulty neon exit sign seemed to pause. The lead officer, a lean kid no older than 25, spun around, hand hovering over his holster. "You can't come in here," he barked, voice cracking with authority he didn't feel. "This is official business." Elvis held up his hands, palms outward. "I know," he said softly, voice carrying the weight of every stadium roar he'd ever heard. But here it felt intimate and small. "I'm not looking for trouble." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Identify yourself." "Name's Elvis Presley." The words landed gently, but firmly, like a stone dropped into still water. The young cop's jaw dropped, and for a heartbeat, Elvis thought he'd pulled a punch. But the kid's eyes widened with recognition. "Holy, you're—" Elvis gave a tired nod. "Let's just say I'm someone Bobby trusts." He took a step closer, and the older officers exchanged glances. Whispers ran. "Is that really him? Elvis Presley? Why's he here?" Someone near the table, a volunteer coach in a frayed denim jacket, stepped forward. "Mr. Presley is Jake Thompson's friend," he said. "Bobby's always looked up to him. He's—" Elvis's gaze softened as it fell on Bobby. The young man's eyes flicked up, recognition dancing in their depths. Elvis remembered a scrappy kid, no more than 8 then, following his every— Bobby cleared his throat. He spoke quickly. "They stopped me. Said I was trying to run with a car radio I found in an alley. I swear, I only took it 'cause my sister's medicine cost more than I could earn." He choked on the last words, eyes wet. "I didn't want to do wrong." Elvis's gaze hardened. "You're 17. You know right from wrong." The room held its breath. "But nobody here knows what it's like to watch someone you love suffer for wanting help." He turned back to the officers. "She needs that medicine, and I'll pay for it myself." The silence cracked like a pane of glass. The lead cop's expression flickered, defiance warred with empathy. Finally, he looked down. "We've got procedure," he whispered. Elvis smiled, not cruelly, but with undeniable certainty. "Then follow procedure." He reached into his jacket pocket, withdrew a crisp checkbook, and tore out a slip. The inked page caught the light. "Pay to the order of Bobby Thompson, $1,200. Hands shaking, Bobby took it. His eyes filled. Elvis placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Get her the medicine, son." Then he looked at the officers. "And let's keep him out of jail." A murmur rippled through the room. The lead cop exhaled, defeated. "Fine. But you owe us a statement." Elvis nodded. "You'll have it tomorrow. Right now I've got a concert to prepare for." He paused, then added, "And maybe, just maybe, you'll think twice before locking up someone who just needs a chance." He turned and strode from the center, boots clicking on the linoleum, leaving the stunned officers and Bobby and the dozen onlookers swallowed in the harsh fluorescent glow. Outside, the Cadillac's engine idled. He climbed in, the weight of the night's events settling on his shoulders. But for the first time in weeks, the hollowness in his chest eased, replaced by a quiet resolve that music, no matter how loud, meant little compared to the small acts that truly mended broken lives. The dawn light crept through the plantation shutters of Graceland, spilling pale gold across polished hardwood floors and illuminating the lingering shadows of last night's turmoil. Elvis lay awake in his bedchamber, the echo of screeching sirens and raised voices still echoing in his ears. In the quiet that followed, he let the weight of the previous evening settle, just for a moment, before rising to greet another day. Below him, the house stirred. Priscilla moving through the hall in a robe, Lisa Marie padding down the stairs with sleepy curiosity in her eyes. Elvis offered a grateful smile, but his mind already raced ahead. There was work to be done, work of a different sort than the championships of the stage. He dressed in a simple white shirt and dark slacks, brushing back. It had been vacant for years, its marquee peeling, windows boarded up, and yet, in Elvis's eyes, it was a place of potential, a place where Solomon Gardner's dream of a safe haven for black jazz musicians could finally take shape. Solomon, the blind pianist who'd poured his soul into letters, proposing a collaborative venture, would join him there later. That night, however, Elvis drove alone in the Cadillac Eldorado, its engine humming along the quiet highway, as he navigated past stretching fields and silent streetlights. The city's glow to the west receded, and soon the car's headlights traced the outline of the Orpheum's faded marquee. He parked at the curb and stepped out, the cool morning air crisp against his skin. No security convoy flanked him. No adoring fans clamored for autographs, just the hush of solitude and the musty scent of disuse. He crossed the cracked sidewalk and approached the entrance, his reflection ghosting across the dusty glass door. Inside, the lobby was a cavernous shell. Chunks of plaster lay in mounds, and the red velvet seats in the auditorium were threadbare, skirting leaving ragged edges. A single beam of sunlight penetrated a hole in the ceiling, illuminating the dust motes that drifted like silent dancers. Elvis inhaled, the hush of abandonment filling him with a strange calm. He found Solomon waiting near the stage's edge. The pianist's white hair caught the shaft of sunlight, and his cane lay across the piano bench. Their eyes met, Elvis's blue gaze settling on Solomon's sightless orbs. "Morning," Elvis said softly. "Morning, Elvis," Solomon replied, his voice warm but weary. "You came." Elvis nodded. "I did. Let's make it happen." They walked together onto the stage, boots echoing on the wooden boards, and sat at the piano. Elvis placed his hand gently on Solomon's shoulder. "Tell me where to begin." Solomon extended his hand, its veins raised with age and certainty. "We start here, music, then we build from the ground up." He described the vision, a rehearsal space for young talents, a club for night performances where jazz, blues, and gospel could thrive free from prejudice. Elvis listened, absorbing every nuance of his friend's plan. When Solomon finished, Elvis reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a checkbook, sliding it across the piano. The check, $200,000, sat heavy on the glossy wood. Solomon's hand trembled as he accepted it. "I want this place to stand for more than music," Elvis said. "It should remind folks that art is the strongest bond between hearts. No more backroom deals, no shady investors. The community will have its home." Elvis shook his head. "You gave me more. Your music, your faith in people, saved me when I needed saving." He rose and paced the length of the stage. "We'll call it Saul's House of Harmony. Tonight I've arranged for the local council, the neighborhood leaders, and a few trusted friends from the industry to come by. I want them to see the bones, the potential. Then we'll set the foundation." Solomon nodded, his cane tapping the stage. "I'm grateful, grateful beyond words." Elvis placed a hand on the piano's glossy curve. "Words aren't always necessary. Music will speak for us." He paused, looking out toward the seats, imagining laughter and applause where now only echoes lived. They spent the next hour mapping out the renovation, the stage's refurbishment, the installation of a proper sound system, tiered seating restoration, and a small bar area for post-performance gatherings. Elvis delegated the structural assessments to an architect, finances to his own accountant, and legal arrangements to Priscilla's trusted attorney. As they worked, the afternoon sun climbed higher, and the theater seemed to inhale warmth, its hollow bones anticipating renewal. Dust fell from rafters as beams settled into place, but Solomon leaned into the moment, fingertips brushing the keys in absent fashion, conjuring chords that reverberated through the empty hall, proof that life still pulsed beneath the decay. Elvis closed his eyes and let the music wash over him. There, in the forgotten heart of the city, he found purpose more profound than any spotlight, the promise of a home where souls could gather and heal. When Solomon's melody faded, silence returned, but it felt different now, brimming with possibility instead of desolation. They stepped off the stage together, companions united by vision. Elvis extended an arm to navigate Solomon back to the lobby. "Come on," he said. "Let's show the world what love can build." Outside, the Cadillac awaited, its polished curves mirroring the afternoon sky. Elvis held the door, and Solomon's hand closed around his. In that gesture, the abandoned theater's promise became real, an alliance forged not in grandeur, but in quiet resolve and shared humanity. As the engine roared to life, Solomon whispered, "Thank you, Elvis." Elvis smiled, his eyes bright. "Thank you, Solomon, for teaching me that true harmony is found not by those who shout the loudest, but by those who listen." And with that, they drove back toward the city, leaving the dormant Orpheum glowing behind them, soon to be reborn as a beacon of artistry and hope. The evening sky over Los Angeles had already surrendered to night when word came in. Marcelina's gala event was in crisis. Whispers had spread through the investor community that the French-Italian restaurant's assets were frozen, its bank accounts subject to legal injunction. The same kitchen that once plated caviar for city magnates now sat idle, burners cold, ice machines silent. Within hours, the marble floors would be darkened by the hum of tax collectors and the clicks of bailiffs' heels. Elvis Presley learned of this not through his own channels, but from Mark, the young waiter who'd taken up his cause days earlier. Mark fetched him at dawn in a battered sedan, relief and fear warring on his face. "Boss," Mark said in a low voice, "they're shutting it down. Laurent's got more than just debts. He's mixed with the wrong people." Elvis nodded, his jaw tightening. He'd long suspected that the showy splendor of Marcelina masked a rotten core. Backroom kickbacks, laundered funds, hush-money payouts to keep certain patrons silent. Now the facade crumbled, exposing the mold beneath the facade of fine dining. By mid-morning, the news had leaked to the press. Elvis Presley's business dinner venue on brink of collapse, scandal at the star-studded bistro, Marcelina's affairs frozen amid allegations. Headlines scrawled across front pages in bold red type. Yet, from the swirl of scandal, a new chapter was being written. One that would define Elvis's legacy far beyond the stage. Elvis convened a meeting that afternoon in a discreet rehearsal space downtown. No limousines, no cameras, just a circle of trusted voices. Solomon Gardner, the blind jazz pianist whose dream had been trampled by Laurent's elitism. Marsha Reynolds, a rising civil rights activist intent on funding arts in underserved neighborhoods. And Victor Chen, a pragmatic venture capitalist who respected Elvis's integrity. As they sat around a chipped wooden table, Elvis laid out the situation. "Marcelina's imploded overnight," he said, voice measured. "Laurent thought he could buy respect. He was wrong. But we're not here to revel in his failure. We're here to build something that lasts." Solomon tapped his cane on the floor before speaking. "That place was supposed to be a haven for artists, my dream. Now it's a cautionary tale of greed." His tone was both regretful and hopeful. But the bones are still good. The Orpheum is stable. Why not expand? Make Saul's House of Harmony a larger home for every genre: jazz, blues, gospel. Marcia leaned forward. There are kids in South LA with no access to music lessons, no safe space to create. We can partner with the Parks Department, get grants for community outreach. Elvis let their ideas settle like rainfall in a parched landscape. His mind raced with possibilities: youth orchestras, late-night jam sessions, mentorship programs, intergenerational workshops. The vision was audacious. A network of creative incubators seeded from the ashes of an exclusive restaurant, but it felt inevitable. Meanwhile, at the restaurant itself, Laurent Cheval paced the grand foyer in a bespoke suit, growing creased with anxiety. He had once boasted that only the elite understood fine taste. Now he was sweating beneath the dazzling chandeliers as court officers arrived to padlock doors. A collection agent snapped his fingers at a newly appointed interim manager. "Not on my watch," the agent barked. "Clean out every drawer, seize every asset." Laurent's comically glossy hair appeared bedraggled under the harsh fluorescent bulbs. One by one, staffers, with tears, anger, or indifference, gathered their belongings in cardboard boxes. The maitre d', a once proud ex-marine turned host, refused a single demi-tasse from the now shuttered espresso machine. "I served your tables with respect," he threw at Laurent. "Now you'll learn respect is earned, not bought." As the last plate of veal was carted away, Laurent stood alone, surveying the ruin of his empire. No fireworks lit up the night, no cameras captured dramatic exit. Just an empty dining room, hushed and hollow. By early evening, Elvis and his team had mobilized. They moved swiftly. Paperwork was drawn to incorporate Saul's House of Harmony as a 501c3 nonprofit. Benedict Knoll, the restaurant's former accountant who'd refused to falsify ledgers, joined them, bringing crucial documents that exposed the depth of Marcelina's corruption. Media inquiries shifted focus, from sensational scandal to community resilience. The board of directors convened in a rented hall. Victor's pitch won unanimous approval. Funds were pledged. Marcia secured a public-private partnership to bring music classes to juvenile detention centers. Solomon oversaw the artist-in-residence program. Elvis remained the quiet linchpin. His name lent prestige, but his actions spoke louder. He donated not just money but time and sweat, swinging a hammer at the Orpheum alongside carpenters, reconciling wiring with electricians, painting walls with brushes dipped in midnight blue to evoke the depth of the Mississippi Delta sky. Within weeks, scaffolding rose where marble benches once gleamed, replaced by open-air rehearsal zones. Tour buses of young musicians from Compton, Watts, and South Central arrived, greeted by the hum of pianos and the pulse of upright bass. News cameras that once mocked Elvis's weak evening attire now captured him in work boots, grinning as he hoisted a speaker or adjusted a microphone stand. A twist arrived when one of Marcelina's former patrons, a silver-haired philanthropist who'd initially sneered at Elvis's quiet departure, stepped forward with a matching grant. He declared, "I misjudged that man. True greatness isn't in performance, it's in compassion." The partnership transformed the surviving restaurant space. Its private dining rooms became teaching studios, its back halls practice rooms, its gleaming bar a fundraising venue for Saul's House of Harmony. Laurent, now mostly forgotten by the public, retreated to a small apartment, living on dignity rather than the trappings of splendor. He wrote an anonymous letter to Elvis. "You showed me mercy instead of vengeance. I'm humbled and forever changed." Elvis's only reply was an offer. "Come volunteer next month. There's a place for you here too." On opening night, the Orpheum pulsed with life. The marquee proclaimed, "Saul's House of Harmony, grand opening." From the modest backstage, Elvis watched as teenagers performed jazz standards, gospel choirs lifted their voices in prayerful chants, and blues guitarists wailed with raw, aching power. Rays from stage lights carved shafts of amber through drifting haze. Elvis, dressed now in a simple black shirt and jeans, emerged quietly, applauding in the shadows. The crowd, once the privileged few of Marcelina, now comprised entire families, veterans, school children, gallery curators, journalists, everyone invited by word of mouth. Solomon's hands glided across the keys with renewed vigor, his wife standing by to hand him fresh sheet music. Marcia moved through the aisles, guiding young volunteers. Victor prowled the balcony, ensuring the finances held firm. At the far edge of the stage, Elvis stepped into a beam of light. The applause swelled. He nodded in acknowledgement, then raised a hand to quiet the world. His voice, soft yet resonant, echoed across the hall. "Tonight, we've proved that dignity can't be bought. It's earned through kindness, through standing up for what's right, even when the world looks away." A hush fell. Then the crowd rose, applauding with fervor that shook dust from the rafters. Their cheers weren't for a star, but for a man who used his stardom to lift others. In that moment, as the music rose and the audience wept, one truth stood clear. The shadows of greed and prejudice had lost. They were banished, not by spectacle or vengeance, but by quiet conviction, and the simple act of giving people a place where they mattered. The grand opening of Solomon Gardner's new club, the House of Saul, arrives on a crisp evening just as the city lights of Los Angeles begin to shimmer. Word is spread far beyond the usual jazz circles. This is not merely a venue, but a testament to something greater, a sanctuary born from dignity restored. Elvis Presley stands quietly in the dim wings, his silhouette framed by the faint glow of stage lanterns. He wears a simple black shirt and dark slacks. No rhinestones, no glitz, only the quiet assurance of a man who has chosen purpose over pretense. Inside, faces fill the gently sloped auditorium. Retired teachers from South Central, steel workers who once labored down the street, families drawn by flyers in community centers, curious journalists. The scent of polished wood mingles with the faint tang of old velvet curtains. On stage, Solomon carefully positions his wheelchair beside an upright piano. Warm applause ripples through the crowd as he raises a hand. Elvis slips onto a stool at the back of the stage, his presence an unspoken benediction. Victor Chen stands near the lighting booth, nodding in time, eyes glinting with pride. Marcia Reynolds moves through the audience, guiding newcomers to vacant seats, her smile steady and bright. Even Laurent Cheval, the erstwhile restaurateur, sits near the aisle, head bowed in gratitude, having at last learned that money buys entrances, but kindness opens hearts. A hush settles as Solomon's fingers touch the keys. He begins with a gentle rendition of Georgia on My Mind, the melody carried by his fingertips and his deep, resonant hum. Each note seems to echo off the high ceiling, washing over the audience like a cleansing rain. A spotlight finds Elvis, and for a moment their eyes meet. Teacher and student, bound by more than music. When Solomon finishes, the applause is continuous, but neither he nor Elvis moves. They both understand that this moment is not about virtuosity, but about connection. At Solomon's nod, Elvis stands and steps forward. The room leans in, curious. What will the star of decades, the man who once electrified stadiums, say here? Elvis lifts the microphone, voice unwavering as he speaks. Tonight, this place was born from ashes, an old spotlight's glare replaced by the glow of honest voices. We proved that no building, no facade, no borrowed prestige can outshine the light we carry within ourselves. When truth leads, greatness follows. He pauses, taking in the faces before him, the hopeful, the weary, the reclaimed. This club belongs to all of you who believed in something beyond currency, who held on to hope when walls collapsed around us. A soft murmuring hums through the crowd, an affirmation rather than applause. Then, in a single breath, Elvis begins the opening bars of If I Can Dream. At first, it is barely above a whisper, intimate as a bedside lullaby. But as the refrain swells, voices join him, Solomon humming backup, choir members, Marcia invited rising from the floor to lend harmonies. The audience, too, cannot resist. They snap fingers, tap feet, and lean into the song's promise of a world reborn. Between verses, Elvis gestures toward Solomon. This man taught me that sight is not just for the eyes, but for the heart. And that music, real music, never lets us forget who we are. A spotlight shifts to Saul's wife, seated stage left, tears glistening as she watches her husband's dream unfold. When the final chord fades, the crowd erupts in a standing ovation that shakes the very stage. Elvis and Solomon exchange a look, one of unspoken understanding and shared triumph. It is the kind of applause that transcends celebrity, reserved for the soul-stirring moments when human dignity is affirmed. Backstage, as the house lights rise, Elvis finds Laurent among the milling staff. The former restaurateur stands awkwardly, shoulders slumped. Elvis approaches, extending a hand. "Your lesson taught me more than any banquet ever could," he says simply. Laurent's throat works. He nods, speechless, before clasping Elvis's hand, an alliance forged by humility rather than opulence. Outside, the neon of the old Marcelina sign has been dismantled, its parts quietly donated to a local art collective. In its place, a small plaque marks the entrance to the House of Saul, inscribed, "Where hearts gather, truth is heard." Elvis steps into the night air, the chords of If I Can Dream still pulsing in his veins. He pauses under the glow of a solitary street lamp, listening to the laughter and music spilling from the open doors behind him. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying echoes of triumph and hope. He whispers to himself, "This is the legacy I've always wanted." And with that, he walks slowly away. No fanfare, no cameras, leaving behind a place where truth, compassion, and music intertwine to light the path forward.